right. Go. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining or watching this video later. My name is Branden Kirschmeyer. I'm here with Alison, Rachel, and Timothy. We're teachers at Sojo University in Kumamoto. And today we're going to talk a little bit about an action research project that we've been doing focused on our own professional development. It was centered around student surveys that they take at the end of every semester, every course. And we're going to briefly run through the outline of the research, but mostly we're going to try and focus on the practical takeaways that we learned and share with you some advice if you're looking to try something like this in your own context, and maybe even an invitation to join our future iterations in the future. So as you can see from the little cartoon here I found, this whole thing is about feedback. It's about finding accurate sources and making goals, plans, and pathways to use that feedback effectively for your own professional development. Coincidentally, this whole project started with a question that was the same question that Curtis talked about this morning, which was, am I a good teacher? Are we good teachers? Following from that, how do we know if we're good or not? Where does that information come from? When we find places that we can have that sort of information that might indicate it, how do we zero in on something particular to improve? Uh, and if we do then decide on one aspect of our profession to improve, how do we measure that? How do we evaluate our own efforts that we take? And maybe most importantly is that if we are undertaking this sort of journey, what can we do to put ourselves on paths that will lead to actual measured improvement that we can see, that we can feel, that we can acknowledge, and that our students can as well. So I'm going to go back. The first question, are we good teachers? That one, frankly, for me, is still the jury's still out on that one. But to talk about how do we know and what should we try to improve on, this goes back to the feedback sources. And again, Curtis talked a little bit about this earlier in his speech. We've got various places that we can look for that sort of information. One of which, and maybe most directly, would be the assessment of learner gains, right? But in our context, we don't have that. We have grades that we give out, right, to students, but those are grades that we give out, right? They're highly subjective. They're not very comparable in terms of one semester to the next because they're totally different students with totally different contexts happening. We've also got sometimes some direct observation by supervisors or peers. But these are singular opinions, singular people looking at us and observing us. They have certainly their own merit to them, but in terms of identifying areas and finding feedback that is more voluminous, right? Some data that we can rely on based on the amount. It's not, it doesn't live up to that standard. And so we zeroed in on these surveys that we give out to students. And over the years, I've been at Sojo now for 10 years. And in those 10 years, I did the math. It was something like 1,300 individual students, answering questions that some of which directly related to my teaching style, my abilities as a teacher. So there's lots of data there that we can look at. They are comparable because the questions remain the same more or less throughout the years, and they're specific to key areas. The question remains, though, is it useful to us? Can we make use of these data to drive our professional development plans? So the next slide here has the 18 items that were included. These are translations. They're presented to students in Japanese on the survey that all students take at the end of a course. The top three we are distinguished more about the course itself, the objectives, the syllabus, and whatnot. And then questions 4 and 5 are focused on the students themselves. But questions 6 through 18 are very much factors that are influenced by the teachers, and the teachers have a lot of control over, we think, the outcomes of those items. So what we did is we took those items, we assign them keywords, which you can see on the right.
Thank you. Yes.
And we're back. So the last thing I'm just going to say about the whole design is that we set up an action research project around these survey data. We started by looking at the data and what it said. We highlighted, we identified and prioritized some of those key target words that we each individually wanted to focus on. We created our own individual plans, but we did this together as a team and talked about them. We implemented over the course of a semester, and then we looked at the new data that came back and tried to make meaning of that. So I'm going to pass it along to Tim, who's going to talk about his experiences.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. So after looking at the data, I decided to concentrate on improving my impact, explanations, and feedback. I particularly wanted to concentrate on feedback because I got quite a relatively low score in one of my classes. So I quickly came up with some possible solutions. So for impact, try to create a more positive atmosphere in the class by having a 5-minute small talk activity at the beginning. For explanations, to check if they understand by group rather than eliciting agreement as a class, which I did in the previous year. And for feedback specifically, I made an effort to identify what students are struggling with and give feedback to the whole class. And specifically, I dedicated time after each activity specifically to give class feedback. So I kind of had to find something. And as you can see, it had a significant effect on the pharmacy course. I went from 0.71 to 0.85. But rather unfortunately, I lost some points with the other classes, the other two classes that I'm comparing, and it went down by 0.06. So possibly the way different classes view feedback is different, but I'll investigate this a bit further, I hope. Moving on to the next slide. One of the biggest things that surprised me was I had areas of significant improvement in areas that I wasn't directly targeting. I think this could be one of the things, the biggest takebacks from this student survey data. When you try to improve one thing, it doesn't only necessarily improve that one thing. Possibly spending time on feedback made the students feel that the difficulty was more to their level, and the pace and the volume also had the same kind of indirect positive effects. So yeah, that's the main takeaways, were the unexpected gains in volume, difficulty in pace, improvement possible in untargeted areas, and well, the significant gain in pharmacy for feedback, but loss in other classes for feedback. Perhaps different class cohorts are also affecting the score. Okay, so now I'll move on to, I believe it's Alison. Yes.
Okay, I'll talk a little quickly, try to anyway. I decided to prioritize atmosphere and difficulty level and feedback. So for atmosphere, I thought that maybe my score was lower in the past because if I know that a class is like not really enthusiastic to be there, it kind of bums me out. And so I think I kind of reflect back that attitude to them a little bit. Like, if you don't want to be here, I don't want to either. So I tried to be a little more conscious of that and change myself and be a little more friendly. And even students I didn't really necessarily want to talk to, I tried to make some small talk with them. I tried to use some background music during games and tasks to try to make it a little easier for them to have conversations. They didn't feel like so intimidated. And I tried remembering some more small details about students. They do some writing assignments, kind of like a diary. And I would check them, but I tried to make a conscious effort to really put a face to what I was reading so I could remember these little details. Difficulty level, especially my art class, the students are quite mixed in their level. So I tried to be a little more conscious of the type of activities I was giving them, making easier readings and allowing more time for them to finish their tasks instead of being like, I've got 3 more activities I want to do. Let's go. I just kind of let them take their time. And the third, for feedback, I made my own midterm survey with some questions about some things I wanted to know, like, hey, am I doing okay? Are you enjoying this class? Do you feel like you're actually learning? What else would you like from me? That kind of thing. And I tried to write a lot more details in my feedback on their assignments that they turned in. So like handwritten comments and things like that. And instead of just writing "great job," I try to maybe ask them questions in my comments and things like that. Unfortunately, my ratings didn't really improve. In fact, they are worse than in the past. But I choose to look at this positively, and I feel better about my classes. I think I made a difference in these kids' lives. And so I am ignoring all this red on the in the numbers. I'm not taking it in. I'm refusing it. Next slide, please. So yeah, I think what surprised me the most was that I actually had gains. Like Tim, he said earlier, he got some unexpected gains, and mine were in responsiveness and teacher's handwriting. And I was like, okay. But yeah, I don't think that the fact that I didn't get any significant gains in what I targeted, I don't think that implies that I haven't improved at all. Because, like I said a minute ago, I feel like I have, and I feel like I've connected better with my students this year than in the past. So, whatever numbers. um, so, again, like when these data sets, they're two different cohorts. It's not like we're comparing the same students. So I feel like we do have to take all of this with a grain of salt because, you know, they all have different attitudes in class. There's different atmosphere and just it's different. So, I mean, it's useful, this data, but again, just I don't want to take it to heart too much. And I think my increased focus on written feedback and comments and paying closer attention to the student work and what they like and don't like, I think that has helped me connect more with my students. And with the midterm survey that I created myself, like the students responded well to the efforts that I was making. So yeah, that's it for me. Here you go. Rachel, go ahead.
Okay. All right, so I focused on speaking style and teacher enthusiasm. So in terms of speaking style, the goal was to try and adapt my speaking style more to each individual class, and to keep the speaking style light and simple. So my classes for both these surveys are actually quite different from each other. I have one very advanced class, and then one very sort of low level class in terms of their speaking ability. So it is quite an adjustment between the two of them. And even within the advanced class, there are some very advanced students and then some sort of moderately advanced students. So even within one class, there's a lot of adjustment that had to happen. But trying to pay more attention to that. And for teacher enthusiasm, sort of like Alison said, I find myself mirroring the enthusiasm that students bring to class, which depending on the day may not be that much. So just trying to be more cognizant of my own enthusiasm and trying to keep it a little bit more consistent from class to class. It's not that my scores were insanely low for these, but just they were the scores that could see some improvement. So on the next slide, thanks, Branden. So for what was it? Teacher enthusiasm had some decrease happen, which the most decrease happened in the pharmacy class, which I, looking back, attribute to that is a class that once a week meets later in the day. So not only are the students more tired, I'm also more tired, and we're all just trying to get through the 90 minutes, not necessarily enthusiastic about it. I sort of blame it on that, but for me personally, but yeah, so that one had a decrease. But in terms of speaking style, only one class increased in score. But I think this might reflect overall improved student level from year to year. In that particular class, it seems, and I don't know that I have any data to back this up, but it feels to me that these students are more and more capable English speakers every year coming in. So it could be that they can just handle a more natural speaking pace as opposed to needing a more slower speaking pace. Now, apart from my peers here, the data that I was comparing was from 2025 this year, or excuse me, last year, and then 2023, because in 2024 I was away on maternity leave. So the survey did change slightly. Survey questions did change a bit. So I wasn't comparing like for the let's see, where oh, sorry. Did you feel the teacher's enthusiasm and motivation for the class? This question didn't change. This was the same in 2023 as it was in 2025. However, the speaking style in 2023, there were two questions that could kind of apply to this. Were the teacher's speaking style easy to understand? And was the speed and volume of the class appropriate for you? Whereas in 2025, it was just, were the teacher's explanations easy to understand? So that's something to take into consideration as well. And yeah, Branden is next, I think.
Thank you, Rachel. All right, I'm just going to very briefly touch on mine before wrapping it up with our main takeaways. And the main point that I wanted to stress about my own experience is that the gains that I saw on the aspects that I had targeted seemed to correlate directly with the concreteness of the tactics that I used to make that change, and also the sort of frequency with which students, like the sort of touch points that students had with those. So, for example, my biggest by far was the volume of homework, which I just cut significantly from the years past. Now, these are different students, so and I never told them that I was cutting it compared to last year's. So it was sort of, this was like a litmus test, but every single week they had less homework, and it was very clear that, you know, to me, that it was a clear tactic. It was very concrete. Just don't give them homework. The other ones, like making lists of stories to share and implementing a daily tactic for those also I saw some gains in that. So for me, the process of using the data to identify specific areas, to prioritize them, and then to find specific concrete tactics that I could use to sort of address that change, and then to routinely remind myself and implement those in every class or in every week, was the impactful, the takeaway for me, from my experience from this group. Altogether, from the four of us, as we've just illustrated, we had vastly different experiences with the data and making meaning of it for ourselves. This year, I'm not going to read it off, but you can see, was the sort of sum of all of our experiences and our advice and takeaways that we hope you might find useful if you decide to try to use student survey data to direct your own professional development plans in the future. I know we are almost out of time for this schedule, so I'm going to stop it there and open the floor to any questions or comments that anybody has. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.